It's that time of year again with E3 and all this speculation's pretty interesting. But for today, I'm going to be talking about what I expect for Halo MCC on PC. Because as we know, flighting is confirmed to start this month, and I'll be talking about what I expect for when it's released to the public and the flighting for it has stopped. So let's get into it. Now, to start off, MCC has, for PC anyway, has announced a lot of things. There's FOV, mouse moving curves, raw input, rebindable keys, and quite a lot there for V-Slider as well. Now, a lot of these features I do think should be there. While I may not use all of them, they definitely should be there. And one of the ones I want to start off talking about is the FOV. They did make a post quite lengthy, talking about a lot of things with MCC on PC. And one of the things they talked about was FOV. Now, if you don't know what FOV is, I'll try to explain it. It's basically the field of degrees in which you can see on your screen. And I'll probably show a comparison of low versus high FOV. And one of the things they talked about within it is the fact that when you have it, there's a lot of things that you have to take into consideration. Like, for one of them is arms, or the first person animation / models. Because if you put or crank up the FOV really high, you can end up seeing the end of your arms and see through them. Or in some cases, like they said, the animation no longer has the original effect or purpose that it had to be. Like, sprinting in Halo Reach at high FOVs looks clunky. Now, for comparison, I believe Halo Reach original FOV was somewhere between 60 and 70. And the reason I say this was because Halo 3's was at 60 and Halo 1 and 2 were at 70. And Halo 5's is at 78. So I'd imagine it'd be in the 60s to 70s. Now, for PC players, that's quite low. I would say the majority of PC players have it in the 90s or above. One of the problems could be that the animations are clunky, or you could see little bits of animation that you weren't supposed to see due to it being at a low FOV. Now, they've talked about many ways of combating this. One of them would be to simply just have the weapon itself be fixed. So no matter what FOV it is, its position the same. Now, I do not like this sort of setup or way to allow for high FOVs. Now, while it is effective and easy, I don't think it's the best solution. Because one of the problems I can see from it is it's going to look clunky at really high FOVs because everything will wrap around in a different way with the weapon just appearing the same. And part of the FOV effect needs to be that the weapon comes back, otherwise it just looks off. But then the problem is, if you let it do its own thing, you do have the animations break and whatnot. Now, I do have this sort of solution to the problem that, while it doesn't necessarily fix everything, I reckon it's the best mix between the two. Basically, what I think they should do is allow for any FOV, but then have the weapon have a cap where it will only allow to go so far away before it will just stop moving. Obviously, they would have to experiment for each weapon to find how far back it can go, or what its FOV can be before it breaks, and then set that as its limit. Now, obviously, one of the problems is if it gets really high, it's going to look off again, but it's not going to look as bad as just having it in the same position no matter what. And it allows for the FOV to have its full effect because the weapon still comes back. But at the end of the day, I reckon they should have, and they've confirmed, that while in the settings themselves, that the weapon's arms and that probably aren't going to be able to clip through the screen or anything, they will allow you to actually mess with a text file, which is basically just a text file of your in-game settings, and allow you to change them. So they're allowing us to actually change them, just not within game settings. We just have to go into the game files and change it. And now that I think about it, one of the problems is if you're using or bought the game from the Microsoft Store and you download it through that, you're not going to have access to those files unless you're on Steam, because they tend to block all the files through the Windows apps and whatnot. Now, obviously, I believe most people will probably be getting it through Steam, so it's not much of a problem. So they're basically allowing us to have it our own way, but if we have to, it's probably going to be changing text files and whatnot. And chances are they'll probably have like a screen when you start up afterwards saying, some things may break or not be the way they were intended. You know, they'll probably have a warning screen like that. Now, obviously, what else would I expect is a good question, because they have put a lot of stuff there and a lot of examples of stuff that they could add in, and I'd be fine with. Now, I do hope they don't have the port as bad as Halo 5's Forge for PC, because the mouse controls are god awful. Like when playing it does not feel like it's raw input, even if you have the option set on. It feels like it simplifies your movements into just simple strokes. I hope with the MCC they make the mouse inputs actually feel as proper, have very low input, and need to optimize it for PCs. Because one of the problems with Halo 5 Forge is that runs god awful even on good machines. Like I've got a 1050 Ti, and that should be able to run the game, comparing it to how mediocre it looks. But it runs really bad. Like that game, for not looking amazing, it runs really poor. So I'm hoping with the MCC they allow it. Yeah, obviously the reach is gonna look better than on PC than it will compared to probably the Xbox One and its original version. Not only because it's got high resolution and higher refresh rate, there is a few things I'd like to talk about, and that's like graphic settings they should be adding to allow PC players to make the game look the way they want it, and that's anti-aliasing and anisotropy filtering. Now while Halo Reach probably originally came with anisotropy filtering, probably wasn't very good. And to explain what anisotropy filtering is, I'll probably have a picture. And it's as simple as when you look at textures on an angle, they tend to blur, and this anisotropy filtering makes them look more or less blurred. Now obviously I expect that to be an option. Anti-aliasing allows the edges of, let's say, shapes and geometry to look more smooth. And then the last one that I would add is motion blur. Now they did say it's not going to have motion blur, but I'd be okay with them adding the option for motion blur. Because while I do understand why a lot of people hate it, I don't mind it. When I say mind it, I'll probably always have it on its lowest setting. So I do believe they should have the option for motion blur, then allow you to choose how strong the motion blur is. Because I feel as if what they're doing is adding options, so you can have these things, but you don't have to, which I really want to see. And the last thing I want to talk about is the frames per second. Now they have confirmed that they're going to try and get it to an uncapped frame rate. Now obviously I can understand what their problems are, because I've actually seen it firsthand. Because a lot of the problems with it is that a lot of things were and are connected to the frame rate. As an example, for Halo 1, in campaign, your respawn timer, which is the time that you die, how long it takes to load the last checkpoint again, how long that takes, is actually linked to your frame rate. If you're at 30 FPS, it'll take about 30 seconds, and at 60, 1.5, and at 120, it'll take 0.75, and that's based on the frame rate. So obviously when they convert a lot of things from the frame rate to a timer, I expect maybe cutscenes will be at 60, but hopefully they're going to be able to put the actual in-game frame rate at uncapped. Even though I don't have a 60 FPS monitor, I do think this is important, because then even people with an under 60 FPS monitor can take advantage of it. Because basically they can use this to have it where it will show the most newest rendered frame, rather than having it once every 60 in a second. They can have 120 and get less input lag as well. Now I don't think there's much else I need to talk about, but if there's anything you think MCC on PC should have at launch or during flighting and whatnot, do tell me in the comments below, because I'll be interested in what it is that you think MCC needs on PC to have it a proper PC experience as a game, to have it as a full experience. That's pretty much it. My name's Ryan, and I'll see you all later.